Hey everybody, welcome back to another news roundup. Hope you guys been enjoying the content channel as of late. I did promise today, or yesterday actually, by the time this video comes out, that I was going to post a video regarding a YouTube situation. That video will come out tomorrow. I come off work and I didn't get time to edit last night, so that video will come out on Tuesday, yeah. But we have another news roundup for this week. Got a couple of topics here and there, so we're just going to cut this short, and we're just going to dive right on in. So, of course, coming off the weekend, we had the latest release, very important release, actually, when it comes to Warner Brothers. The first film entry into the newly rebooted DC universe, that being Superman. I did a review for it. You guys can check that out if you guys haven't seen it yet. But we now know the finances, the box office performance, and it did good, but we do have to frame it in a particular way because some people are framing it a different way, and I think it's not the best way to think about it. So just to mention up front, though, the film collected a global debut of $217 million. Now, the reason why I say good is because, just for general box office takes, this isn't bad. It's good. To even, further illustrate it, Deadline, I think some of the outlets there, they made it known that this is one of the few movies this year to open to over $100 million, which is actually quite sad when you think about it. I think they're saying purely domestically speaking, which is pretty sad. One of three, I think they said. So that really tells you of the times that we're in. But it's not bad in terms of just general gross. Just generally making money. I think that number is not bad. However, once we get into the whole expenses, all the investment itself, then you'll see a different picture painted once we bring the stuff up. So according to Variety, the production expenses amount to at least $225 million. And according to Deadline, the marketing expenses potentially amount to at least $200 million. So, typically with these kinds of films, they will put up like $100 million. Marvel does that all the time for their films. You expect maybe $100 million here. Turns out it might be even double that. So that's not been confirmed, though. That's only going off of Hollywood Reporter. But just, that's something that I believe needs to be brought up. So if we're led to believe that's true, this film carries a price tag potentially as high as $425 million, making it potentially one of the most expensive films in the superhero genre to date. Yeah. Even if the marketing expenses were not like $200 million, let's just say it was like $100 million, you're still dealing with $325 million. Still a very pricey gamble. Now, per calculations, as you guys know, like I do a triple scale. If it's a triple digit project, I usually times that by 3. But we'll be fair here. We'll also times it by 2 just to give you a general idea of where things should be. So if we're talking just bare minimum with that $425 million price tag, $425 million price tag, bare minimum the film will need to generate at least $850 million. And if it's times 3, it needs to go as high as $1.27 billion in order to break even and to become successful. So yeah. So once we put that all in perspective, that number doesn't look so great now, does it? Because here's the thing. I don't think that the company's expectations are for this to meet at potentially the same place that Man of Steel is. Because if you look at projections right now, a lot of people are saying that the film may just wind up at like 600, 700 million at its overall gross once it's done theatrically, through its theatrical run. I don't think that's the company's expectations. I believe that they want this movie to be what they wanted Batman vs. Superman to be, which is in fact a potentially billion-dollar film. Because this is not, what Man of Steel was. Because people forget that Man of Steel was not made with the intentions to be the starting point of a universe. Man of Steel was just another film being made about Superman. The difference there is that Man of Steel was the motivation to make Man of Steel was the Dark Knight trilogy, was what Christopher Nolan did there. And Nolan came on to produce Man of Steel, so they heightened and used his style to create that Superman project. And because of how it did, because Man of Steel wasn't a failure either, but it wasn't a huge success. It was really a minor success. And very key thing to point out also about Man of Steel is that it actually carries a very similar investment that this film does. It also had like a $225 million thing, except its marketing expenses were not as expensive compared to this. So, but that's the reason why you never got a Man of Steel 2, because the first one was barely a success. And that's why they moved forward with a film like Batman vs. Superman, because they were hoping that with the introduction of Batman and the other characters, that they would reap more profit. And, well, they did, but again, similar to Man of Steel, not a whole lot because of investments and because of the expectations that were being put on the company. So I don't think that Warner Brothers wants to find themselves falling into the same tracks. I don't think they want to. And it appears that that's at least the trajectory for this film. And that's really unfortunate. They want and they need this film to do better than Man of Steel, because it shows more confidence in their product. It shows more confidence in their universe that they're building up, and a willingness to invest more heavily in the future. Because, with the previous DC universe, it just fizzled out, and they just became just disposable. Like, there was no interlinking, there was no ongoing storylines. It was just like, okay, here's a film here and there and there. So now they're trying to do it again, and it seems like we're falling into the same steps again because of what's being marketed. And I know some people probably won't like me saying this, but it's like, I just don't think that doing Superman out the gate was a good idea. I just don't think it was. I think that you needed to do something like a Batman. And I know that some people might feel fatigued by hearing that, but it's like, Batman sells a lot. Man of Steel is the highest grossing Superman movie. It's like a $600 million thing. That's not what this movie needs to do. This film is, I'm pretty sure, bearing the expectations that Batman vs. Superman had, not what Man of Steel has. So I just don't think that this universe is really going to take off. Because think about what the next film is also. It's Supergirl. And I'm pretty sure that film is not going to get close to whatever this movie is potentially going to make. 600, 700 at the end of the day. I don't think Supergirl is going to have the same legs. And then you have Clayface. It's like, we need more notability. We need more familiarity. And clearly James Gunn's not looking for that. And that's, I think, what's going to kill this franchise, honestly. But I'm not going to sit here and say this movie is going to flop. I think that, again, it might face a similar fate that Man of Steel did, which is that it'll make some money, but it's not what it really needs to do. And it's not what the company would want it to do. So it also doesn't help that James Gunn's been saying just really odd stuff in the press, saying like the film doesn't have to make $700 million to be considered a success. Of course it does. Once you consider the kind of money this movie has on its shoulders, the investment, yes, this has to do at least $700 million, especially when we're comparing it to Man of Steel. Yes, this has to do at least that or more. Or by my calculations, it has to do way more than that, than what Man of Steel did. So, and just again, by expectations, by what the company expects this film to do, what this film is positioning itself to be, the starting point of a brand new universe, not just a Superman project, the starting point of a brand new universe. Yeah, the company wants to see large results, not just average, you know? So, yeah, and then there's other things too, political stuff, but I don't think that had a large effect. I think it's more to just do with product, more to do with character, more to do with just fatigue that's going on, because the fatigue is real, guys. The fatigue is real. It is absolutely real. Look at this year for superheroes. Not one superhero project has made money. Captain America hasn't made money. Thunderbolts hasn't made money. This film might be the exception to that, but it's going to be extremely minor. I don't think it's going to be the $1 billion thing that the company is hoping for it to be. And I don't like, again, I don't like the showering of love that the company is giving this movie right now, because I just saw like all these tweets and stuff coming out from the director and the CEO saying like they're super proud of it. Pun intended. Super proud. It feels more like fear than genuine love and celebration, or you're just being ignorant by what you have as an investment, because a film like this should be doing like $300 million, like how Jurassic Park did. This film needs to open big in order to meet at the kind of thresholds that it needs to hit. And I don't think that's going to be the case for this. I really don't. So I have my doubts that this will amount to much, and it's pretty sad given what they're trying to do here with the DC brand, with Superman, all that. It's just unfortunate, really. So, it's got reception to it. I mean, it's got fair reception going on, but I just don't know if people generally, after this weekend, I just don't know if there's going to have a lot of care to go check this out again. I just don't know. My theater was pretty silent when I walked out, so I don't know. I think that this is going to be, at bare minimum, potentially a little higher than Man of Steel. Maybe hitting that 700 million mark. Maybe. But that I don't think in and of itself is a great number. And I know the company expects more out of this. I think that all the positive word of mouth that they're giving right now to the press, I think that is more to just strum up interest in hopes that people will come back to see it again, and not genuinely celebrating what they have made. Because it's really not that great of a number once you put it all in perspective. So we'll see. We'll see how next week plays out. It has no competition. There's Smurfs. So I think it will do just fine. And then Jurassic Park also to contend with. And then we'll see how Fantastic Four does, in competition with Superman. So we'll see. We'll see. It's looking a little grim. It's looking a little grim, if we're being perfectly honest. But we'll see how things play out. So. Speaking of profit, movies that actually have made profit, the Garfield movie, which came out last year, is apparently moving forward with a sequel. Chris Pratt is looking to return to reprise his role as the title character, and according to multiple sources, producers are currently searching for writers and a director to come and helm the project. Now, judging from this film's box office performance, making well over $200 million on a $60 million budget, yeah, makes a lot of sense for this to get another one. First one was made dirt cheap. I hope that this follows in those footsteps. I hope they don't balloon the budget to like a triple digit thing. Keep it double digit, keep it small, pocket sized. Yeah, I enjoyed the first one. I know it didn't get the strongest reception, but I thought it was decent. I thought it had some genuine emotion, to be perfectly honest. And, I don't mind Chris Pratt in the role. So, yeah. So I wouldn't mind seeing another one. Makes all the sense to me to do another one. At least by financial sense, it makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing what else they do. Because, I grew up with Garfield as well. I like the whole cynical, I like that. I like the cynicism, that is embedded within characters sometimes. Garfield's kind of the epitome of that. So yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what they'll do. So speaking of unnecessary things, because I think some people will say that Garfield 2 probably shouldn't happen because it feels unnecessary. I mean, it does. I'll agree with you, but to tag along with that statement though. We're getting a reboot to Night at the Museum. According to multiple sources, a reboot for the Night at the Museum series is in development. According to Deadline specifically, Tripper Clancy, who worked on films such as Die Hard, not Die Hard, and Stuber, he's been hired on to develop the screenplay, with Emily Morris seemingly helming the project. And Sean Levy, who of course directed the previous films, he'll be returning as a producer. Or at least I believe he directed like one or two of the films. But yeah, he's involved as a producer. No release date at this time. By the time I wrote this out, there's no release date. So yeah, this seems very unnecessary, very unappealing also, because I genuinely don't know who is clamoring for another one of these movies. I really don't know. Supposedly they did an animated series or an animated movie on Disney Plus. I feel like that's probably where it should be. I don't think that it needs to go to theaters. I'm not saying this will make it to theaters, but it seems like that's the positioning of it. Yeah, I mean, you look at the finances also. I mean, these movies were not insanely big draws. I mean, they did fine, but they were never like, blockbuster type movies. They were just they did enough. I think that a piece they were like 500, 600 million a piece. So like they have attention, but they're not like overly like popular. So I think rebooting it seems kind of strange, especially when you have most of the cast still around. Like, it's Ben Stiller, right? I think he's the one who stars in these movies, right? Like, yeah, he's still around. Of course, you got a bunch of other people. Rob Williams obviously passed away. But yeah, I don't know who cares. I really don't know who will care about this. I seriously doubt there's an audience for this. So we'll see. I could be wrong, but I don't know. I feel kind of confident saying that there's just feels kind of pointless if you're asking me. So. All right, let's get into a very interesting story here regarding a small little indie production called Lone Wolf. So according to Deadline, this is an interesting story because it actually was brought. I bring this up because of a recent thing that happened with this project, which we'll discuss at the end. But just to lay out the groundwork for this project, or you know what? Actually, no. I'll bring up the thing that happened recently, and then we'll backtrack just so you guys can get a better idea. So according to the Deadline, Bryan Cranston, who is the star of this little indie called Lone Wolf, who he actually wrote directly to the publication Deadline themselves, he has declared that he will not be returning nor promoting the project until the crew receives their week's worth of wages. Now, just to set up what is going on here, so Lone Wolf is a small little indie production which stars Bryan Cranston and Lily Gladstone, as well as a couple of other people here and there. I think Ice Cube's son is involved and stuff like that. It is currently facing some financial hurdles to continue forward with their production because they actually exceeded their proposed budget by at least $2 million. Now, the production wrapped back in February of 2025, and as a result of this shortfall, which is the term for blowing your money, using more money than you were supposed to, or having a lack of funds now, basically. Many members who've worked on the production, including crew, vendors, some cast, according to Deadline, they have been left without a week's worth of wages. Now, this doesn't include the main leads. They've been paid off. It makes sense because, if anyone's going to sue your production, potentially it's probably going to be your leads, so you would want to pay them off. But this is not the first time that that these sort of things were, this isn't the first red flag. This wasn't a thing that just happened. This was something that was well underway within this production, because according to Deadline, early on in the production, the crew was informed that their payments would be delayed. And this actually resulted in the Actors Union, SAG-AFTRA, to step in and issue a do not work order. And this resulted in the production being delayed for a couple of days. And then they were able to sort things out, and then they started filming. And, well, we're still left with people not getting paid. So now it doesn't end there, because there's more, because I looked into this, and it just gets more interesting the more you read it. So the project, as far as I can tell, it originated from a production company called Yale Productions, which, according to some comments from members involved in their projects in the past, they have had a history of not handling their finances well. And this has resulted in, again, crew members not getting paid. And as of recent news, the company has actually filed for bankruptcy. They filed for bankruptcy back in June. Now, this specific production, Lone Wolf, it does have a distribution partner in Vertical, which they have for North America. Don't know if that still will stand, but currently they still have a distribution partner. It's also kind of weird that they do, because they don't have, if they blew their money, I don't know. It seems kind of weird that they're able to have one, But according to Deadline, the production requires additional shooting with the main leads before it can enter post-production, and they're currently in talks with executive producers on the project to come to an agreement with how to best move forward. If there isn't an agreement at the end, though, according to Deadline, legal action is being discussed with other producers, which makes sense because of the fact that they have exceeded the money that they were supposed to use. And there's contracts that are laid out saying that this is how much money is going to be spent, and this is this and that, and people not getting paid also. Yeah, I can understand why some producers, especially because, again, when you betray a contract, or when you are not, when you're not communicating well to your business partners about what's going on, and, having to make adjustments, all that stuff. Yeah, I can understand why they may, in fact, look into that. But yeah, this is yet another example of a production that clearly bit off more than they can chew. There was a very similar scenario to this. I forget what the movie was called. It was another small little indie thing. I think we talked about it on the channel, but their situation was actually a little bit different because their production was actually shut down. This one at least wrapped, as far as I can tell. They just are looking to do additional shooting later on. But the other one that I remember reading up on, that production actually was shut down because they didn't have enough money to literally move forward. As is kind of a similar scenario here with this specific project, but the key difference is the stages of where their movies are at. But I don't know. It's really hard to tell if this will even come out. I mean, there's potential for it to because of the cast that's involved, and they act as basically assets for this project, and the fact that they still have a distributor also. So there's potential for it if they're able to work out all the financial stuff going on. But I wouldn't be surprised if this didn't come out at all. If this was just shelved. Because given the fact that the star doesn't want to return right now, potential lawsuits being lined up, I really would not be surprised if this just went nowhere. Like, I really would not be surprised. And again, this is something that I brought up with the other production that I talked about a long time ago. As much as this production needed to manage their finances better, the crew should not involve themselves if they knew they weren't guaranteed payment right away. They knew the risk. Early on, they disclosed that information to them. It's not like they were withheld or kept in the dark about it. They knew. They knew that there was potential for payments to be delayed. So they knew the risk and they gambled on that. And, it's unfortunate because it's a shitty situation because you're out of money, right? I mean, it's a shitty thing to do to your crew to not pay them. But they knew that too. They knew the kind of risk that they were getting into. So, and apparently, according to some things that I've read, there are over 30 producers listed on this project. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I haven't looked that up myself, but I've heard of a few times from reading comments on Deadline that may in fact be a way that they're trying to pay off members by just handing out producer credits. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm gonna look that up real quick, but see if that's even true. But yeah, dude. This is this is troubling. So hopefully they figure out a way to get this thing off the ground. It really doesn't sound like it's gonna go anywhere, to be honest. I really don't think that they're gonna be able to find ways to pay off everybody, and it's gonna be really, really unfortunate. But yeah, I don't blame the actor for, making a stand. I mean, that's cool and all. But let's see here. Oh my God. Yeah, they weren't lying. Oh my God. There is a ton of producers attached to this thing. Tons of executive producers. Let's just put it that way. Jesus. Yeah, there's a ton of names on here. My God. Well done. I don't know if it's 30, but yeah, that's a lot of names. But I'll leave it. I'll show you up here once I get around to editing this video. But yeah, dude. Learn to manage finances. Learn to manage your projects better, because these kind of things will happen. Because yeah, in my hearts to hearts, I just don't see this coming out. I really don't. I don't think that this is going to really amount to anything. I think this is just going to just fade away from existence. That's what I think personally is the fate for this project. And just judging by how it's been handled, maybe for the best. So. All right. Next topic we're going to discuss is something interesting. It's an early development. It's not something that's imminent, but according to Variety, Legendary Pictures is potentially looking to buy out Lionsgate. This is following from Lionsgate's separation from Starz, and that's after that split had happened back in May. Supposedly, that's when Legendary reached out to Lionsgate to look at a potential partnership. So, very, very interesting. Legendary Pictures potentially buying out Lionsgate Studios. I mean, the company has been in a very rough spot lately. They've had nothing but failures. They just came off Ballerina, which was another failure for them. And also given the loss of major IPs recently, we had the whole thing about the Saw series, which basically now Blumhouse owns. They have a stake in it still, sure, but really it's now Blumhouse's thing. yeah, it's just unfortunate, really. For the company in its current state. So it wouldn't shock me at all, really, if they were deciding to pursue a partnership with a production company like Legendary, because there's more financial aid, there's more financial stability that could be found with a company like that, and the cost, depending on negotiations when it comes to developing projects, they potentially wouldn't be as expensive on their end. Legendary could help. They could try to act as a as a co, like you said, like they said, a co-partnership. So splitting splitting the cost 50-50, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, the company has not been in a great spot. It's been in a rough shape for, I would say, well over a year or two now. So it would not surprise me. It really would not. The only thing that they have at this point really is John Wick. That's really all the company can really hold on to, and that has proven recently to also not been strong in some cases. So, yeah. So it would not shock me. It really wouldn't. But we'll just have to wait and see. Alrighty, we got 2 trailers to discuss for today, and then we're going to call it a day. So let's get into it. So the first trailer we're going to discuss is the teaser trailer for the Odyssey. So went to see the Jurassic World and Superman, and I actually got to see this trailer twice. So yeah. So this stars Matt Damon, Tom Holland, John Berthenol, Charlize Theron, Zendaya, Robert Pattinson, Elliot Page, Anne Hathaway, Lupita Nyong'o, John Leguizamo, and Mia Goth. So big cast assembled for this. Of course, this is written and directed by Christopher Nolan. Of course, you guys know him from many movies such as The Dark Knight, Inception, Interstellar, and his most recent work being that of Tenet, and most, of course, recently Oppenheimer. This has a release date for July 17th, 2026, and as far as what was shown, it is very, very vague. So, outside of some pretty frames, like I love that opening, of just Matt Damon just kind of floating in the water. Yeah, stuff like that looks very, very nice. And the potential for the story basically wrestling with like Greek mythology, amongst other things. Yeah. I of course I'm interested because it's, I'm always curious about what Nolan can create. Lately, he's been a hit or miss for me. I liked Oppenheimer, not much so Tenet. So we'll see. I can't really provide much an opinion on this though, just because the trailer is incredibly vague. Like I just can't really gauge as to what the story is. I can't really gauge by how it may fare, quality wise. So I'm just gonna reserve judgment until I see another trailer. But yeah, Nolan is Nolan. He's always an interesting filmmaker to watch. So we'll see. We'll see how this fares. This definitely will need to be a draw though, because I heard this is a $250 million production. So this needs to do some good business. This needs to do some very good business. So we'll see. We'll see how things play out. Definitely need another trailer though to give an opinion. So, and the other trailer that we're going to discuss briefly is the teaser trailer for the SpongeBob movie, Search for SquarePants. Of course, this is the next SpongeBob film. We had a SpongeBob film many, many years ago. I forgot what year it was. It had like David Hasselhoff in it. But this is going now for a 3D format as opposed to that film. That was a 2D format with live action sequences. This has Tom Kenny, of course, and Clancy Brown playing their respective roles, SpongeBob and Patrick. Some newcomers to the cast include Mark Hamill, Regina Hall, and George Lopez. It's being directed by Derek Dreiman, who previously directed, or at least co-directed, Hotel Transylvania, Transformania. This has a release date for December 19th, 2025. This might get delayed because this is also coming out the exact same weekend as Avatar: Fire and Ash. So unless they're that confident that this film can, uh, compete against a film like Avatar, we'll see. But I have a suspicion that it might be delayed, or maybe they're hoping that some specific trend gets spawned out of it because they're both kind of like aquatic-based films, or at least the second Avatar film was. Fire and sponge. That'll be the trend. I could see it. Hashtag fire and sponge. Or a hashtag fire and water. I don't know. Hashtag fire versus water. There's the trend. Hashtag fire versus water. But yeah, I could care less about this. I really could care less about this. However, like I said, it has to deal with Avatar. I totally acknowledge this. I have good faith, though, that this will do well. Because, like I said, they're hoping that maybe this could be a new trend, like another Barbie Oppenheimer situation, and I can totally see it. I can absolutely see a trend spawned out of this, similar to what Barbie became, where you got everyone decked out in the Barbie costumes. Totally can see this happening with SpongeBob, because Gen Zs are Gen Zs. They are who they are. And SpongeBob's like a mining field for that. That's like where all the memes and crap comes from. Yeah. I would not be surprised if this does well. It's just purely because of the times that we live in, the generation that we're currently in. Would not shock me in the least if this ends up doing fine. Yeah. But yeah, as far as films go, I could care less. I could really care less. I've never been a fan of... I mean, I watched it a little bit as a kid, but then I stopped, and then I never came back to it, and I just never have been that crazy about it. So, yeah, don't care at all, but I can totally see this making money. I could totally see it making money if a trend is spawned from it, which I can definitely see happening for this. So yeah. So, we'll see. I could definitely see a potential another Barbie Oppenheimer type situation happening here. I really can. And maybe they see it too. Maybe that's why they're not choosing to delay the movie. But we'll see. We'll see how it all shapes up. Hashtag fire versus water. I could definitely see that. Hashtag fire versus water. So. But yeah. Those are my thoughts for this week, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. You guys let me know your thoughts on all these topics regarding Superman's box office. Do you guys think it's going to end up doing well? I personally don't feel like it will. How do you guys feel about another Garfield movie, Night in the Museum reboot? Your thoughts on that whole, the whole production regarding that that little indie Lone Wolf? Your thoughts on Legendary potentially buying out Lionsgate? Your thoughts on the Odyssey trailer, if you guys checked it out in theaters, and of course your thoughts on the SpongeBob movie. Let me know all your thoughts on all these topics in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.